All right, welcome back to the podcast. We got here Danny Boy.
Yeah,
Cameramandan.
episode 2. Just giving a little recap, some life updates. Going to talk about the fights, talk about what we have coming up, your UFC commentating November 1st, and just a few other things that happened here recently. So, first practice back. First practice, 9 months out. What was your head like coming into that after a little break?
I think it felt good. It's what I told Kendra when I got home yesterday is what I think last year I sort of lost like the edge. You get back, and when you're not in the mindset of like I'm going out there to get better every single day, sometimes you just kind of start going through the motions a little bit.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, okay, guy gets on your leg, you're not real sprawling. Your guy gets on your leg, you're just falling over top, and then that's good to do that, like to have that element of like scrambling and playing is huge. But for when you're trying to like maintain this edge on your competition, you still have to wrestle with that edge. And I think that's where, taking this time off, and coming back, I feel like I'm back with like that edge and mentality, which I think is huge. So it's kind of crazy. I mean, at 4 weeks, I'm used to like, really taking care of my body, and I'm used to really, every little fine-tuned thing, goes into training. And the last 4 weeks, I wasn't doing that, I wasn't really taking care of myself and by any means, but you still come in and you just kind of lock in, and which feels good. And it's kind of funny. Like, I just kind of told everyone I was back, and it just, people are just like, you want to go Monday? You want to go Wednesday? You want to go Thursday? You
I
want to go
remember,
Friday?
Donovan was asking.
I'm like, dude, I'm
Max
already booked up.
Yeah.
I got to go with you next week.
He's on reserve.
So, which is great. It's kind of how our room is. It's super competitive and fun. And, just, and everyone wants to know where they're at, right? They train with me, and it depends on what's going on in my life, depends on what you're going to get from me that day. I'm always going to fight, and I'm always going to scrap and give you 100%. But there's some days that, if you got 100% bar, 100% is like, like that fighter, you got like, in the old Nintendo games, and as you start going, the bar starts depleting, like there's days that my bar is like at like 20%, and just like I'm in those days, I'm just coming in, I'm just beat. And some days guys get me there, and then obviously there's days when I come in, my bar is closer to that 100%, and feels good. And after the World Championships, people see that and they're like, all right, that's the bar. Let's see where we're at, So I'm going to get the best of everybody coming back as soon as I step back on the mat, which is good. I like that. It's fun. So I feel good. I think that's the important thing, is just maintaining the edge, the competitive edge, just that mindset of like, I'm training today. I'm not in here to just dink around and see what's up, because I think you do that long enough, you start to develop bad habits.
Yeah.
And having only a short period of time this year, just maintaining that training mentality is going to be really valuable.
I feel like if you put too much mental energy into something for too long, and then you get kind of what you were chasing after, and you never really take a moment to take a step back, acknowledge it, soak it in before you return, I think a lot of people burn out. I feel like living that lifestyle and then never giving yourself a break leads to you like ultimately breaking in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. No matter how much you love something, you can only really do it. Your attention span is limited. It is, right? You can only be a high performer for a certain amount of period of time, and for some people that could be a practice, that could be a week, that could be a month, that could be a year, that could be 5 years, that could be 10 years. Everyone's different in like what their attention span is, But when you start tapping into that, you almost start getting diminishing returns, I think that's one thing that, in fighting, when you think about fighters, like they're fighting every 6 months. So they have a training camp. They have 16-week training camp. They fight. They take time off. They get a new fight. They have a training camp. They get ready. Wrestling is like that in college, right? You have seasons. Wrestling's like that in high school. You have seasons. You have certain tournaments you're getting for. You're competing frequently. When you get into international wrestling, it was like that earlier in my career. Once COVID happened a lot, and whatever's going on in the world, like there's not as many tournaments to go to anymore. And for me, there's just not many exciting tournaments to go to anymore. I don't want to travel to wherever is and not really get good matches. It's not worth it for me, the time and energy that goes into it. So you find yourself in that thing where it's like, okay, well, I got 9 months. It's not possible to just be on the top of my game for 9 months and think I'm going to be the best. Like, it's just not going to happen. So got to periodize that a little bit. So to your point, yeah, it's huge. I think you gotta have goals. You gotta have something that you have benchmarks that you're looking for, and that just comes with experience and territory. And done that the last couple of years. I'd love to compete more. People in wrestling talk about, man, we'd love to see our senior level athletes compete more often. And I'm like, sure, but there has to be like a reason to compete. Like we are professionals. We have to support our family. And in wrestling, there just isn't that much money in competing frequently.
Well, there's only a few people I feel like that would give you a hard time or really be worth your time, if that makes sense. Like, why throw together a match when you're as experienced as you are if it's not going to be beneficial for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to compete, more often, but there aren't many matches in the world that people are going to look at and be like, okay, this is a match that we want to see. This is going to be a match that we're willing to, pay top dollar to get this guy to come in and match him up against this guy. And people are going to tune in and watch and think it's going to be competitive. And again, it's just a reality of the situation. I'm not going to wrestle my teammates. It's not happening. And so to go up and go down weight classes, sure, I'll do that, but those matches are few and far between are the reality of making them happen. Like right now, I got invited to go to the Iranian League. I'm not gonna be able to go to Iran and wrestle. I'm not gonna. The government won't let us do that. I'm not gonna be able to go. Got invited to a Russia League. Well, the feasibility of that happening really low. So then it's like, okay, what's next? Okay, well, we're gonna go to some random UWW ranking tournament, and there's gonna be 4 Americans in the weight class. It's like, well, it's just not worth going over there and doing that. I get better matches just sitting in my room as a benchmark. So my whole life I competed all the time, and I miss competing. I love competing. It helps you keep that edge, but it's a little challenging. I just don't have there's not enough competitions out there that are going to really get me excited, get me locked in, and willing to go travel away, be away from my family, be away from K2 roots, be away from M2 training center, be away from my girls, be away from the animals, be away from my wife. It's just like there's not a lot of things that get me out of bed and like, yeah, I want to go do that.
Speaking of competing, this weekend was Super 32.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, first you went down to First Form, just a big supplement company. What was that? What was that like?
It was cool. So First Form's a company that I've had my eye on for a while. I just see what they do. They've been around 20 years. And the two owners of the company, the brothers, Sal and Andy Frisella. They're pretty outspoken people. I believe in a lot of things that they talk about. Andy specifically, and so I was an honor when they called me up and said, hey, you wanna come in and tour our company, and what are you interested in coming down here? I'm like, yes, this would be sweet. Jarrett Bond, he was from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania guy. He's kind of the influencer athlete guy. Really cool. Just in communicating with them, like through text message or whatever it may be, but they didn't skip any steps. Everything about their company is pristine. That's the word that I leave with. I leave with pristine. It's like they do everything right. Just the way that the way that their company was set up, their employees, their expectations. It was cool. So I appreciate it. I really appreciate them coming down. Having me come down. Looking forward to what could be next there. And then so I went to St. Louis on Thursday, and then Friday morning flew right out to Super 32. And then just like so, it's just completely it's just like kind of a perspective of like my life. Like you have like my professional development life of competing and training and sponsorships, endorsements, and getting ready for the Olympics, which is something that's always going on. And in parallel, you have my club, right, where I don't know, we had 20 some guys kids that went down there that compete across the middle school and high school divisions. And then once you go down there, no, whatever, it's like the David Taylor, that part of it, it doesn't matter. At that point, it's like, I'm here for my kids. There to help them. I'm here to be there for them and help them because they're focused on their goals that weekend. It's good. Super 32 is a freaking brutal tournament. That's all I can really say. I talked about it before going down there. There's not a lot of easy matches. It doesn't really matter how where you are as a competitor.
So M2 had 8 placers. How did they hold up in the tournament?
Pretty good. I think leaving Super 32 with 8 placers, four in middle school and 4 in high school is great. It's definitely something to build upon. In the years we've gone down there, we still, we haven't had a high school champion yet. We've been close. We had finals a couple times. We've had guys in the semis, every year. It's a hard tournament to win in high school. It really is. Because it's unforgiving. It really is unforgiving. And this year's 3-point takedowns, and we had 4 matches, whether it was in the blood round or it was like in the placement rounds, quarters or semis, where we gave up back points, and in a scramble where it's just like, man, it's like end of the period, we're trying not to get taken down, and scramble a little bit too long and end up in a back point situation. And those are really hard to come back from at a tournament of that level, So that's, that's tough. That's a tough thing to have, happen. But, I think guys are pretty resilient. I think everyone leaves there with positives and things to work on. It's like, hey, if we talk about, we talk about drilling habits all the time. It's something that I take a lot of pride in my training. It's like having good fundamentals. I think that's super important. Good fundamentals, good drilling habits, good body language, good attitude. And really in some of the matches we lost, those are the kind of things. But it's a good learning lesson because I can say, hey guys, look, we talk about these things in practice, and now this is like a good example of why they're super important. And it's just we try to have really good conversations with our kids about that. We try to talk to them about accountability and ownership of their careers. And I think in the moment, when our guys are doing really well, we have a successful group of guys, they're doing well. Sometimes you say things to them and they're like, whatever. But then you go to a tournament like this, a little humbling. You get there and like, okay, well, it is exposed a little bit. But I look at our guys and I truly believe, I'm like, man, I think our guys technically, skill-wise, we are right there with the best kids in the country. And sometimes a tournament like that's coin flip. It's just like, who's on a little bit more than the other one? Who gets to take down in the period versus not? It's like, and for these kids, for the goals and aspirations that they have, the rest of their life, that's what it's going to be. You're talking about, man, my goal is being All-American in college. My goal is being a national champion in college. And, hopefully some of these kids have goals beyond that. We'll see as we get closer. But it really is like that. Like the best guy doesn't win the tournament all the time, but it's the guy that believes they're going to win the most. Who's going to dig down and when it really matters, get that takedown or defend or escape or ride out. And those little battles make a big difference. So we were right there. I mean, we had 4 high school placers, and I think we could have probably had like 7, 8, probably. I mean, we were right in there. We had guys that are definitely in that mix. So you know what? I think it was really good. Middle school guys, super proud of the middle school kids. They battled really hard. We had a champ, Cooper Deputy. He's won the last 2 years. And he's kind of going through a weird phase. Like middle school is weird because maturity starts kicking in. Like kids start getting like muscles and armpit hair and mustaches, and you're like, what the heck's going on?
Their
Like
voice
last
is
year,
like, dude.
you're a skinny little dude, and now you got muscles. And it takes like it can take a skill, and it can close that skill gap or surpass fast. So it's a interesting dynamic, at that age group, and it's what you start watching. So Cooper Deputy, he won again. Max Dingus got 3rd. He's been, he's performed really good. He's a really tough kid, but Super 32 has kind of not been his tournament the last couple of years. So really happy for him. I know he wanted to perform well, and he did. He lost in overtime in the quarterfinals to the number 1 seed, and then battled back and got 3rd. Beat some really tough guys. Evan Restivo had a great tournament. He just moved from Texas, within the last 6 months, and he's a kid that kind of does a lot of really good things all the time. And he lost a close match where he just wasn't doing the things that we were talking about that we do in practice. It was like, and then all of a sudden I'm like, hey buddy, listen, like it's not about winning this tournament. I really don't care if you win this tournament or place 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 8th. I don't care. I just care about your development and doing the things that we're doing in practice. You're as disciplined in practice as any kid in our entire club. Let's go do those things. And I don't know if he's ever really placed in a tournament like that. And then he just got on a run. He just started doing exactly what we do in practice, wrestling hard, running around shots, and he beat couple really good kids and got third.
I
And
bet that took a lot of stress off his shoulders, knowing that you're not putting that pressure on him to win,
yeah,
and his worth isn't dependent on him winning. It's just that you're more in it for the long term development of him, and I guarantee you that is the reason why he started going on a run
yeah.
like that. That's nice.
So and I think, and then Leo Murillo was battling like he was sick, had a flu all weekend, dying. He's just like he's chill, shaking, sick, wrapped up in a blanket. And he ended up getting second, but he's just battling. He just wasn't quite himself. But again, like you're talking about those little coin flips, like they make a little difference. But I was really proud of him. I told his dad, like, man, just toughness is something that you can't teach with kids. Sometimes you just sort of have toughness or you don't. And whether again, I don't first, second, third, just like he was battle. You're sick. Okay, well you battle. So I think the middle school kids, that was great. So really happy about that. When you think about middle school, like they're the future, they're the building blocks of like the next of what's coming on. So kids can look at that and be like, okay, these dudes are battling hard, they're gritty, they're doing the things that we're asking them to do, and they're performing well. In high school, we had 4 places in high school. Dalton Perry was 8th. Luke Simcox was 6th. Nick Pavlechko was 4th. And Dom Deputy was 4th. And Dom, Dom is Cooper's older brother. Again, a guy, he's going to always been in the mix, but I think even getting 4th place for him was big because it's sort of like one of the better performances he's had at one of those bigger tournaments. And he was close. The matches, he had a kind of weird loss on the front side, but he wrestled really good on the back side and getting 4th. Nick Pavlechko is a heavyweight. Got 4th this summer at Fargo, 4th at Super 32. So, he's trending up right now. He's going to Indiana. He's really close. He lost close match in the semis. Like just, again, it's a takedown one way or the other way. So, pretty happy with him. Luke and Dalton both in their matches they lost, they got turned. And both winnable matches for him, but it just those make a difference for those guys. And, again, they're right there. Before the tournament, I really thought that Luke and Dalton had a chance to wrestle each other in the finals of that tournament, which would have been crazy. They're from the same high school, and this didn't quite go that way. But obviously, consistently, they're both now multiple time Super 32 place winners and both state champions of Pennsylvania. So, good. They're 2 of our really good kids in our club, and we had a couple other guys that were right in the mix, and now you use that moving forward, to kind of build. So yeah, leaving there, pretty happy. But obviously we got things to work on, and now the focus turns to these guys all being state champions this year, and what do we got to do to get them there?
All right, switching gears, doing a little recap of the UFC fights this weekend. We had a few things that did not go as planned. I don't think anyone could have expected what happened with the Johnny Walker Ankalaev fight. That was kind of ridiculous. I don't think they should have stopped that fight. I think Dana was pretty mad at that stoppage, but in the moment, I guess there was nothing they could do.
Yeah, it was tough because the being Abu Dhabi and the time change that those matches were going on right as the competitions were going on, so I was just kind of seeing the updates on my phone and stuff. But yeah, it's weird. It's weird that the rules. You can't knee a dude when he's down on his knee. So I obviously you're in the heat of the battle, but you kind of know better. I feel that, and I think he got lucky that it wasn't a disqualification. Very lucky.
Yeah, I thought for sure that Walker was going to get his hand raised just because of the fact that it was an illegal knee.
Yeah.
But
so I don't know. We'll see. It's weird. That's back-to-back weird fights for Ankalaev, having the draw with Blachowicz and then that match with that fight with Johnny Walker. I don't know. We'll see. We talked about it's kind of unforgiving in UFC. Like if you're kind of not trending up, you're sort of trending down. You don't really stay the same in UFC. You're either up or down.
Yeah.
So obviously, I don't know. Maybe they run that back. I'd like to see that a full fight. I don't know. I think the other fights went about as expected. The Dagestan guys just basically,
Nurmagomedov
did what we thought they were gonna do. The Russian guys did what we thought they were gonna do.
You were right. I thought Usman, for sure, and you were right. Chimaev, man, he picked him up, put him down, and held him there for a long time. It was hard. It really felt like Usman didn't have a whole lot for him. Even the striking exchanges were pretty back and forth.
It was a good test to see where Chimaev's grappling is, because I think every person would say that Usman's grappling is high level. High level. I mean, I think he out grapples every person that he's had. You know, every title fight, every guy he's beaten. You know, he's that's a big strength of him, and Chimaev really kind of beat him at his best thing. So yeah, I mean, a good indication moving forward that Chimaev, he's the real deal. You know, I think everyone knew that already, but I think that's a confirmation. And they're both 170s that are both at 185. So it's not. I mean, Chimaev's a huge 170s, a big 185. You know, but Usman knew what he was getting into going up to 185, and I definitely, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I saw an interview. Obviously, he was devastated. I mean, he wanted to win. You know, so it's like he didn't. Although it was short notice, they know what they're signing up for. You know, you take a short notice fight, you know what you're signing up for. You know this guy's got a full camp, and you know it's. But there's still the if you lose, it's still the same. Doesn't matter if you're full camp or short camp. You lose, you lose. You know, you win, you win. So I don't know. I mean, I think Usman's at a crossroads. Like, what am I doing? Am I going back to 70, and I'm gonna have to be kind of. I'm a couple fights away, probably getting back to Edwards, or do I go to 185 and a couple fights away again? Older in his career, I don't know where his next steps are, but Chimaev's next steps. I mean, he's in the mix. They're saying he's the next title shot. Definitely could be there. Could be one more fight. Really, I think everyone at 185 is probably it. They're one or two fights away, guy getting hurt in camp, and they're getting the shot. It's just where they're at. So yeah, good. Volkanovski, you know, again, you feel bad for a guy like been at the highest level and now losing and getting knocked out sucks. His body didn't look right. I mean, just it compared to what he usually looks like.
Yeah.
And there, it just didn't look the same. You know, which you would expect. You know, obviously not having a full camp. And Islam's the real deal. He was prepared, you know. So
Landed that head kick. It was clean. It happens. I don't know if it was a result of short notice or what, but I do know what you mean. It was like, it was disappointing. I thought for sure it was going to go the distance. But all the other picks, you know, you were spot on. The only thing was the Walker fight that was weird and Volk, you know, but
yeah.
it's a shame.
Well, you know, one thing that is interesting, and I think it's Volk's mindset, and I said it before he fought, right? I'm like, man, it's just weird. Like, you're the best, you're best, and you're kind of taking this weird underdog approach. I know you get a short camp, but once you take the fight, you take the fight. Doesn't matter. You know, if I was, short notice, like thrown into the Olympic Games as an alternate, you're there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're whatever it is. Like, you got to now go compete. It's just what's ahead. But I thought that mindset was a weird thing, you know. Then he goes and loses, and then his interview afterwards, I thought was something. I want to talk about that a little bit because, man, I as an athlete, it's a hard thing because people are valuing you based on your performance. That's what it is. As a professional athlete, that's what to the majority of people, to your fans, the people that are following you on Instagram, the people that are rooting for you or cheering against you, the reason people are buying the pay-per-views, you are essentially like a commodity to them. You are like, when you're good, you're their favorite. When you lose, you got people that love you. Great. You have people that are happy that you lost. That's part of the game. And it's really hard as an athlete to not that become like your value, to somebody. And you have to have a really strong inner understanding of like, why are you doing these things? And it seemed to me afterwards, he was talking about like he's struggling with not fighting as frequently, right? And he's like, I just need another fight. I need another fight. And that's a worrisome thing because it's like, man, it's kind of sad that maybe it's a loss, his losses, but it's almost like it's like his value is only strictly fighting. And I hope that's not the case, because I like him a lot. I like his demeanor. I think he's great for MMA. But obviously, man, dude, you've proved a lot in your career. Your value is way more than fighting. Your value is way more than fighting. And you don't want to see me holding on, and then now there's like this cliff, and I hope he's not at that cliff. I don't want to see that.
I hope he's not.
I don't want to see that at all, and I hope that mentally he can kind of recover. But it's a hard thing for athletes at any level, right? And whether it's go back to wrestling a little bit, right? Because now in wrestling, kids are getting ranked at every single level, right? Every match that they do, it has a ranking implication. Because people are making money by putting out rankings, right? New rankings, new rankings, new rankings. So it's I'm the 12th ranked guy, or I'm this, that. Well, guess what? If you want to be the number one seed, or you want to be the number one guy, go win, and do it because you want to win. Don't do it because you're doing it for a ranking or crap like that, because that is a slippery slope, and that is a short-sighted thing, and your value will become just like your performance. You got to understand, like, why are you doing these things? You got to understand, what's the purpose am I doing this for? And be honest with yourself. Like, okay, if I'm an MMA fighter, am I doing it for the money? Okay, great. Do it for the money. Am I doing it because I'm the best and I want to be the best in the world? Do it for that. Am I doing it because I'm supporting my family? Okay. But have a pretty clear understanding. As a wrestler, have a clear understanding. Am I going to this tournament because I want to see where I'm at with this guy? Am I going to this tournament because I want to be ranked 4th and I'm ranked 8th and that's what is important to me? Am I going here because I truly just want to be the best? And I think that's something that's really important, for these kids in wrestling. You got to, if you're doing it because of ranking and you're chasing ranking and number by your name, that's a tough thing. Coaches, parents, like, please don't let that be the thing that you're chasing, because it's going to be short sighted. And there's not a lot of you're going to be chasing something forever. You'll never be happy. You'll never be happy. And I think that's one thing in my career. My dad, at a young age, it was never about, like, I never remember my dad saying, like, we're going to this tournament. We're kind of trying to be this. It was always like, I was like, Dad, I want to go. I want to go to this tournament and I want to be the best. And that was it. That was all. And I think I was probably lucky in a way, because the ranking stuff, like, wasn't really a thing. It wasn't like every time I went, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was thinking, like, man, how can I dominate this person? Okay, it's a semifinals. I want to major a tech fall or pin. It's a finals. I want to major a tech fall or pin. And I think that let me never get caught up in that ranking stuff. Yeah, do I want to be ranked number one in the country? 100%. Do I want to be number one in the world? Absolutely. But I want that because of the way that I wrestle and the way that I compete. And I'm never wrestled to just be that number by my name, because then that just does nothing for me. I want that because I believe in it. I believe I'm the best. But I'm not wrestling. I'm not competing because of that, or I would never have had the success that I did. So some of these kids, like, that's a part of it. But listen, if you want to be number one or you want to be ranked, whatever it is, then just go out and wrestle as tough as you possibly can, score as many points as you possibly can, and that stuff will come. But man, to be just chasing a ranking or a status, like, it's a tough thing. So that's a tangent I got onto, but I just been thinking about it a lot. And I watched guys compete this weekend, and I could see kids competing this weekend that, man, it's like they feel like they all this pressure in the world on them because of a ranking or a placement at this tournament. And I'm like, you don't want any pressure, just lose. Lose. Then there's no pressure, you know? And guess what? If it's hard to deal with the pressure winning, then just lose. But guess what? Winning comes with different territory of expectation. And if you're, I talked to my younger kids about this a lot this weekend. I'm like, if you're just wrestling to win, it is a stressful way to live. Because guess what? It's hard to just win matches. Let's wrestle to score as many points as we can, because you can make up for mistakes. Your margin of error is so much smaller if you're just trying to win, because it comes down to one exchange. But if you're going out to score as many points as you possibly can, you got a lot more margin for error. You can make a mistake and you can recover from it. If you believe in your mind, I can score 3 takedowns, I can, whatever it may be. Well, guess what? You can wrestle so much more free. If you're like, I have to win by only giving up 0 takedowns and win this takedown, and you think you're going to win that many matches in a row, tough matches like that, maybe you can. But the probability of you doing that over the course of your career, hard, really hard. So, yeah, score as many points as you can. You want to be ranked number one in the country. You want to, whatever it may be, you want to be whatever it is. You got to compete. You got to want to win. That's a given. But be the guy that wants to score as many points as you can. That's going to separate you. And you're going to have a more peaceful competition career. I don't know. That's just what I think about that.
Speaking of wrestling analysis, you're going November 1st to commentate the duels for UFC Fightpass.
Yeah, it's going to be, UFC Fightpass, they did some couple matches last year. They hosted a couple collegiate dual meets. And this year they expanded their schedule. I think they have 8 dual meets across the country this year. And what's cool about it is, so it's CFFC UFC Fight Pass is hosting it, and they're collaborating with college wrestling and having collegiate dual meets across the country, and it's a great thing because now it's wrestling's getting a different exposure. We know how valuable wrestling is in MMA. It's huge. Wrestling's number one discipline, right? And so now a UFC Fight Pass, like, oh, we're identifying this. Let's identify these kids earlier. Let's get these kids on UFC Fight Pass earlier. Um, and we can start to get to know them, get a different audience to recognize these kids. On this year, you're going to see some superstars competing. You're going to see Iowa State wrestlers. You're going to see David Carr. You're going to see Missouri wrestle. You're going to see Keegan O'Toole. You're going to see some of these top tier programs competing across the country. And it's a different way these kids can get, noticed a little bit differently earlier if they take that path. And I think that's what the UFC probably sees. That's what UFC Fight Pass probably sees. Um, and it's a different value to the UFC Fight Pass group of people, right? They're used to seeing grappling matches, used to seeing fighting. Well, they're like, man, wrestling is really good. Wrestling's winning. I don't know much about wrestling. Oh, well, now as a collegiate dual meet, I can watch this. I can learn a little more about it, and I can identify these guys. So I think that's cool. And so I'm doing the announcing here for this first match on November 1st, down in North Carolina, and throughout the dual meets throughout the season, they're in like cool destinations. Like there's a dual meet in Wyoming, and it's on a ranch. This first one is here. It's on a military base. So I think that's a cool thing too, kind of having a different element. And I'm exciting. I like. I have a pretty analytical mind, and I do like commentating. And getting the opportunity to go do that. The first one's got two dual meets, and tune in on UFC Fight Pass to check that out. It should be pretty fun. But yeah, it should be. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun thing to do.
Great.
Let's come up here on November 1st. And then November 15th, that week, I got invited to go out to the Team USA, the big media day that does all the promotion for the Olympics this year. I got identified as one of the athletes that they want to bring out. So that's been cool. And we're going to piggyback that with some other things out in California. It's hard for me to get out to the West Coast. So going to kind of piggyback that trip with some other media opportunities. I'm going to see Coach Cal at the training lab, do some testing this year as we're, getting into the Olympic year and kind of get everything ironed out with him and what we need to do and what our track looks like. And so that should be good. And then following right after that, I go out to training camp in Colorado Springs here at the end of the month. So November is going to be bananas. Got a lot of traveling, got a lot of things upcoming, but all really good stuff. Excited. Yeah, I just think the biggest thing for me this year is just like, I'm excited. It's not like, I'm not like dragging ass, being like, oh, I got this, I got that. I'm 10 months from this.
Not that I have to, but I get to mentality.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's not, that's exactly what it is. I mean, I'm pumped for all the opportunities moving forward. And again, this is the Olympic year. I'm excited. This is an amazing opportunity to do something that's great. I dreamt about winning an Olympic gold medal one time. I don't think I ever, as a kid, I never even thought past one. And now we're an opportunity to win two. And going back to what I talked about my kids, it's like, I'm not doing this. I'm not trying to win this year for, legacy. I'm not trying to win this year because of, all these external things. I'm doing it because I want to. I'm doing it because I want to wrestle at the highest level. I want to compete against the best guys. And the Olympics is the highest, best thing you can do. So I want that. And I want to go do that. And I embrace the challenges that are going to come with it. I'm going to embrace the opportunities that come with it because these are things that I've always wanted. I've always kind of dreamt about them. I think I can help push wrestling forward with the way that I compete, but also hopefully opening doors and pathways to things outside of wrestling that are going to help the next generation of kids. That's something I think that's going to be really cool moving forward and make wrestling something that's bigger than a niche sport. It's a hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to do. And I'm hoping that that's some things that I can do and make pave the way for the next group of kids coming through. And, hopefully one day wrestling is one of the most premier watch sports. And in order to do that, you need guys that are going to go out there and wrestle hard and score points. That's what people want to see. That's the equivalent of knockouts and submissions in MMA. Decisions and winning and holding on for a point. That's not going to move it forward. That's not what I stand for. And that's the parallel that I got. So we got a lot of cool things moving forward. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is a fun podcast. I got heated a couple times just because man, I leave these tournaments and I got these things on my mind just for the sport of wrestling. And what can I do to help this sport of wrestling? And I just want to see guys put it on the line and wrestle hard and score points, because that is the best possible thing you can do for the sport. Whether you want to be, it's whether you personally or the sport in general. And Super 32 is a great example of that. And the guys that went out there and got after it, they were the winners. They're the ones that stand out. You know, you want to stand out, go get after it. So applaud those guys for doing that. And now I talk about, I got to make sure I'm doing it. You know, I can't talk about it and make sure I'm not doing it. You know, that's the fun part about this. So I'll do the best that I can to continue doing those things.
Episode 2, that's a wrap. Like and subscribe, guys. Appreciate y'all.
Kapow!